Hi, folks, and welcome to Film Optimists, where we talk about all things film with a healthy dose of optimism. I'm your co-host, Seth Boyd.
I am Megan Tierney.
And folks, we have a real treat. We have everybody's favorite podcast guest, Riley Gerberick, is back. We're going to talk about a movie that has been suggested to us quite a bit. Definitely one we've been excited to talk about, Mad Max Fury Road. We talked to you from the hellscape of America's 2022 to talk about the Australian hellscape of the future. Riley, welcome back.
Hey.
How are you?
Our favorite guest.
I'm doing as good as anyone can about now.
Yeah, we try not to date these too much because we record these a few weeks in advance, but I don't think things are going to be better. So by the time this comes out. So this one might be a little bit more overtly political than our other overtly political episodes, but it's a certainly more relevant movie today than it was when we planned it. And we're going to get into that in a moment. Riley, why don't you jump in with why you picked this movie, if you don't mind. I suspect part of that is realizing that if you don't pick a movie like I initially suggested, I will make you watch a Russian 3-hour movie.
Yes. So Seth had reached out to me and he was like, hey, let's discuss some options. We're thinking this, we're thinking that. And then Fury Road got brought up and I was like, ooh, yes, do that one because it is near and dear to my heart. One of my favorite movies of all time, probably.
Absolutely.
And yeah, I was like, okay, well, if I don't pick this one, then I'm going to have to sit through another like 3.5-hour film. That's I'm gonna have a hard time staying off my phone and distracted from.
That's the joy of Russian cinema.
Regardless of its quality, yeah. But yeah, so I jumped at the chance to talk about Mad Max. I love it. It's great.
Fantastic.
And yeah.
And Megan, you had not seen it prior to the podcast, right?
Yeah, running theme, folks, of Film Optimists is I'm just the lame-o that doesn't know any of these awesome films that get brought up to me.
I hadn't seen Ferris Bueller, so I mean, like, I have certainly a gap that you're filling as well, Megan.
Well, this one was particularly, I feel stupid to have not seen it when it first came out, 2015. But yeah, never seen the franchise, like any of the franchise. Knew enough about it, I guess, a little bit. But wow, this I like to rank my movies now that I see. This is my only 5-star movie that I've seen this year.
Okay.
I loved this movie. This is my Valhalla. I'm so excited to talk to both of you about it, and I was floored. So like excited to talk about it.
Fantastic, love to hear it. And I think everyone. Obviously, when you're watching an action movie, such a scale of it is how much action is it, and that's an appropriate scale. And Megan, we're doing this after watching Drive. You know, that was a few episodes ago, but Drive is kind of an action thriller that was also very boring. And that's, we're fine with boring movies, but I cannot think of a movie that is as nonstop action packed as this movie, even though that's what literally every action movie will say on the label is action packed. Most of them are dull. This is a entire chase sequence. The movie is entirely a chase sequence. It is very high octane. Riley, as the guest, why don't you do the honors and give for the brave who have not seen it yet, but will hopefully do so after this episode, give a quick synopsis, make sure we're on the same page, because there's a lot of meat on these bones for us to dive into.
Totally. So it's actually not set in Australia. It's actually set in the California Central Valley in like the 22nd century. So no, that's a joke.
Bakersfield.
So yeah, Bakersfield. That's the bullet farm. Mad Max Fury Road is set in a setting called the Wasteland, which is a post-apocalyptic desert. Our main character, Max, is driving across the wasteland in a souped-up buggy and is captured by a group of, we'll call them machine cultists. And is turned into a blood bag with universal donor written on him. He's captured and used for their own purposes. And in the film, you have a woman named Imperator Furiosa, played by Charlize Theron, who is freeing captive women and who are slaves to this man named Immortan Joe, as she drives them across the wasteland to find a paradise called the Green Place, where she is supposedly from. and heard stories about as a child. And as Seth said, this film is one giant chase scene. Max and another character who is in service to Joe named Nux are chasing Furiosa and the women. And there's a brief struggle here and there. Max is trying to escape everyone involved. Nux is trying to return the women to Joe, but they end up siding with the women and Furiosa and turning around after they discover that the Green Place no longer exists. And they're going to return and take the Citadel and free the people from Joe's rulership.
That's it.
That's it. Fantastic. I appreciate the depth. Thank you. And
I know.
so, May, I want to start with a question for you, if you don't mind. Prior to seeing this movie, prior to knowing we were watching this, was this a movie you thought you would like, or was this kind of like a begrudging, I'll do it for the podcast, or like, what was your expectation in terms of style and your appreciation of it, I guess?
Well, I think, at the time that it came out in theaters, this is 2015, I think. Yeah. So I think that, like many things, I had a preconceived notion of action films at the time too. And so also they weren't for me basically at the time. I think the lesson that I learned from watching the movie really is that I need to stop judging like genres by its cover, basically, because this is a perfect movie for me. But so I don't know. I was really intrigued by the trailer and kind of got the gist of what it was by it. So and like just seeing visuals, hearing about it, that kind of thing. But I think I just thought, yeah, maybe it's not for me at the time, and or now. It wasn't on my watch list, in other words.
Sure.
So I'm so glad that I was schooled correctly about it.
That's the opposite relationship that I had to it in 2015,
really?
which is dumb action movie, pretty lady, haha. Because I was in high school and a 17-year-old.
Yeah.
So did you largely see this as a Charlize Theron vehicle, Riley?
Stan.
No offense. She's gorgeous.
Probably.
I can look at that.
Yeah. I was gonna say, I'm like not a Tom Hardy like stan that much, but he looks great in it. Like, I think he looks pretty good in this.
That's true. He does, and both of them look beautiful in the way that only people can look beautiful when they're covered in blood and mud. So
yeah,
which they're very good at. So Riley, kind of same question to you. Of you and I are both particularly sci-fi fans in comparison to Megan. Was Mad Max a thing you were a fan of prior to this?
Not really. Like, I had seen bits of the other movies, like if my dad was watching like Road Warrior or like Thunderdome, like I'd catch glimpses of that, but nothing really stuck with me. But visually, Fury Road is much brighter and much more colorful and much more like enticing to watch. So I was like, yeah, I'll go see that. It was something to do with my friends, and I loved it immediately. So yeah, I didn't have much experience with the like franchise in the universe, and I confess I haven't even gone back and watched like Road Warrior. Mel Brooks is not Mel Brooks. Mel Gibson's part of that. Mel Brooks is great.
Yes, Mel Brooks we can all get behind. Yeah.
Yes, Mel Gibson not so much. So, but honestly, you don't even need it, right? Like, you don't need the context of the prior two films to get everything and understand everything you need to from Fury Road. It is perfect in and of itself, and yeah.
Fully agree. I will say, I also was like, I was aware that there was movies called Mad Max and that Mel Gibson was in them. And I think by the time Fury Road had come out, we already knew enough about Mel Gibson to not be excited to go back and watch a Mel Gibson movie. I did watch the earlier ones because, I wanted more of this world. But they best serve to make this movie look as much better as it is. And like, George Miller is great. I love George Miller. We'll talk about him a little bit more, I think, throughout the episode. But just quick things. He also he created Mad Max Fury Road. Megan, I think he told me he's also an actual doctor, which I did not realize. But going back to our first episode of Picking Rob, he basically took part advantage of the same film programs that Peter Weir did and came up around the same time in the 70s when Australian film was really being put on the map globally. But he's also done the Babe films. He's done Happy Feet, Lorenzo's Oil. He's done some very strange, very sporadic things, but is still, I think, most known for these very crazy post-apocalyptic, very politically charged movies, which they all of them are. But this is by far the best one, and not just because Tom Hardy's better than Mel Gibson, not just because it's a bigger budget. It is a lot more direct. But I will say this is maybe, to me, my favorite example of let's give a big director or a ambitious director more money. What George Miller did with a bigger budget is, to me, much more impressive than, say, another director like Christopher Nolan being given over $100 million to make a movie. Miller did something much more unique and impressive.
Right.
Absolutely.
And Meg, we've talked about the term pure cinema before. If you could be able to follow the film without sound, the sound design is amazing in this movie. The music is great. The dialogue is very limited. You often have a long time without real dialogue, often just grunts. And you can, because this movie is an action chase sequence, it does feel like an old Buster Keaton thing. Of it is essentially all of the story is largely told through the action. And so it's a very accomplished filmmaking that is impressive on its own, even if you don't care for the genre. Sorry, I didn't mean to cut you off.
No, you're good. I didn't mean to interrupt you.
No, not at all.
Before we move on from George Miller, like all of his movies do have a very like central theme to them that are very closely related. Like Happy Feet and Babe, like are very similar to Fury Road in a lot of senses, and we'll get into that as we start digging into the themes and stuff. But the idea of like agency in your own life and like what your life serves and for what purpose your life or death, depending how that serves like the world around you, is a very central theme to his
and like society as well, like living within something, and it could be many different worlds or styles of society, I guess, which is awesome.
I'm glad you called that out, Riley. And one thing I want to make sure is clear, like he is George Miller is definitely an auteur. Like he is usually heavily involved in the screenplays, if not writing the screenplays for his movies. He's often involved in production. So it's not like he was hired as a director to do Happy Feet. Happy Feet was his baby in the same way that Mad Max and Babe were his babies. Like these were his ideas that he brought to fruition. So let's make sure that's clear. These are, this is all the ideas of the same man that are closely related, but completely different stylistically and tone. Although the opening of Babe is still very disturbing, the pigs in the farm. I think that's honestly on par with some of the more disturbing scenes of this movie, and that's a kid's movie.
It and Thunderdome will do a good job of making you afraid of pigs.
Yes.
George Miller has a thing with pigs that he does very well.
Yeah.
I don't know if he directed Thunderdome, actually. I should probably.
He did. He co-directed it with someone.
Well,
but
he did
all three.
Yeah, he did all three.
I'm going to credit him with every pig scene I see from now on.
If you haven't seen or listened to our pig episode, Riley, that might be good, like antidote.
I have listened to it.
Okay.
I have listened to it.
Oh, yes.
But as we
There's some
mentioned,
pig propaganda going on in there.
Yeah, a pig will kill you if it is given a chance.
Oh, yeah.
So great. Well, we have like so many meaty bones of themes to dive in on. Riley, would you like to kind of start us off with whatever's predominant in mind?
Okay, so we've got some stuff that I kind of want to dig into a little more in depth, and we'll save that for the end.
Okay.
But for now, we'll start with the kind of the most like front-facing things in the movie, which are like power and agency, right? And how one like can claim self like in a society that is constantly trying to rob them of that. And we'll start with like the imagery of like death and how the body is always used as a tool to meet an end in service to someone else. The movie's in like a libertarian hellscape, right? You've got like three major powers at B, which are the Citadel, headed by Joe, which controls all the water and produce. You have the Bullet Farm, headed by the Bullet Farmer, which produces bullets. And then you have Gastown, which produces gasoline,
Gasoline.
headed by the Man Eater. I think that's his
I think
name.
that's right. Yeah.
The People Eater. He's the People Eater.
Well, he doesn't
So
discriminate on just men. That's
right.
better.
Right.
Yeah, you have to be resourceful.
Right. So it's very on the nose, and he's never even named in the film. I had to look that up and find out what his
That
name
makes
is.
sense. Okay.
But it's great. He's disgusting. And so these three men all have entire like cultures and civilizations under them. They're not that big, but they are all at the absolute top, controlling the lives of everyone below them who's living in squalor and abject like slavery. Joe has his boys, his war boys, all of whom are like condemned for death, basically. A lot of them have medical conditions that they will die from. A lot of them are just bodies to be used in his service. And then there are the women in the Citadel who are sex slaves, plain and simple. The characters of Joe's wives are referred to as his prized breeders. And all of these people struggle to have like any sort of agency, obviously. And Foucault, we're going to break into this a little bit, but Foucault talks about this sense of like biopower, of like how your life serves a purpose. And I'm going to mess up his first name. Yeah, Mbembe. I think it's Achille.
I believe it's
Mbembe.
Chile. Yeah.
Okay. Yeah. He juxtaposes that with something he calls necropower, is how your death serves the society around you. And that philosophy really dominates this film, because these people are throwing themselves to their death in a glorified sense. There's a striking scene where one of Joe's war boys is pierced through the chest and the head by raiders in the wasteland, and he spray paints his mouth chrome and shouts, "Witness me, I am like awaited in Valhalla." And all the war boys around him give a huge cheer, and he jumps to his death and blows himself and the raiders up. So just that theme of like not having any control, like your life is not yours, your life belongs to another, the society and culture around you.
Yeah, and I think the religion that they come up with for the warlords is really, really fascinating to me. And it's a surprisingly rich culture. They have their rituals, they have their symbols. It is a by any sociologist or anthropologist's definition, a true culture. Right before the scene you're talking about, Riley, like these war boys, who are, most of them have visible tumors and are going to be dying from that. So they already have like a short life, and their way that they ascend, the way that they make it to something better, is to die. And it's not just die of natural causes. You have to die in glorious combat on the Fury Road for Immortan Joe. So your leader is also your god. There's this great moment of them walking through like this armory, but it's stacked with steering wheels, and they pick it up and they raise it above their heads like they're worshiping it, like it's a relic, and they put it on there, and they
like ritually pray to the monument too. They cross their fingers above their head and lower their head, and then reach out and grab whatever wheel they get, and that is like their chosen vehicle.
Exactly.
I mean, Seth, you said religion, but it's like a perfect cult as well.
Yes.
And
that's true.
And it's an interesting way they switch their killing of the people, literally like just through their practices and like the world that they live in, into I think they have to switch it to the idea of martyrdom in order to make the thing last, because who the hell would like go for this? So it's so full on the way they have to like be all in it, I guess. And they're dying from cancer like that they live in.
There's another scene where it is Nux, who is our war boy. It's the audience's war boy.
It's Nicholas Hoult. Is that the actor's name? Holt.
Nicholas Holt.
Holt.
Yeah.
Holt.
Holt,
Who's
yeah.
I just want to make a quick comment. Very good in this. Not someone who's on my radar prior to this, but is excellent in this movie, and that would really impress me in this every time I watch it.
He's
British
fantastic.
Skins.
Yeah,
Always.
that's right. Skins. I always forget.
Yeah.
But
Sorry.
yeah, no, you're good. So Nux is dying. He has tumors that he has named and drawn smiley faces on. And he talks about how like he's going to die, and if he does not die in a way that Joe approves of, he will not make it to Valhalla. So not only is their lives dictated and given value by Joe, their death is as well, and their afterlife.
Right.
It is giving complete control of your like whole existence to a man.
And let's extrapolate off this a little bit, Riley, because I think Joe really has this like self-sustaining but god awful system of like he has his breeders, so he's creating more war boys.
Yes.
And these war boys are going to live to die for him. So he's never really going to be usurped. He's not really threatened, and a lot of that is because of and I will say the thing I like about this movie is you never really think, oh, wish I was Joe. Like it's not like watching a gangster movie. It's like I want to be the Godfather, whatever. Joe is also visibly dying. He has horrible skin. He's a monster.
He's diseased as well.
He's diseased, and of course he's morally repulsive as well. But I do appreciate them making him physically repulsive. So he has this self-sustaining system, and it's very easy to watch a movie like this and think over the top, this crazy wasteland, no real world comparisons. But I mean, I think so many people in our country at least really have this idea of we just stick our nose to the grindstone, work hard, go to college, get the good job, and then we'll be rewarded like Joe, or we'll have the Valhalla or whatever. And we are essentially, as I think Foucault and Mbembe note, that bio-death and that necro power of dedicating our lives to something that does not serve us, but serves other people.
Yeah, they do a great job of, they don't glorify villainy in this film.
Right.
They make it disgusting.
Yes.
Yeah, Joe is repulsive. His breather mask has like rotten teeth on it. His hair is yellowed and falling away. He himself is like covered in like warts and stuff. And the whole film like builds off of this ideology. Like every other element that's in here goes back to the root of like power and agency in this setting.
I also love that it creates a scarcity culture so well. Interestingly enough, because I thought it looks visually, this is like a maximalist movie, like no pun intended, but like it was visually like so many elements, but I think it's bred of this scarcity and like resourcefulness mentality. And like we said, like their shrines are made of the spare parts, and Furiosa's arm has she has like a like a robotic arm, I should say, with wrenches on it. Yes, prosthetics, and all of them are like that. Like it's peppered into the whole world that these are bits and pieces of the world that
like
they
every
live
car
in.
is smashed together from a couple different cars. Yeah,
it's freaking awesome.
Yes.
But it looks amazing just visually on film, but it's so expansive of this world that they live in, and like nothing offbeat. I feel like that was just amazing to see.
I really love the language that especially the war boys have about their culture, and they're the ones that we spend the most time with outside of the wives and Furiosa and Max. So, and they're the ones who have the most clearly defined culture. So you have Valhalla, you have Norse mythology, but then you also have the very modern ritual of spraying yourself with chrome. So you have modern terms like guzzolene and like was it cola water or something?
Agua cola.
Agua cola. So you have agua this. Cola. I really appreciate this because this doesn't, to me, this isn't just bullshit words. This is actually Miller and others thinking about what language is going to be like in the far future. With stories being passed down.
Yeah, it's a very prophetic offering of like how our society is devolving in a way. One of my favorite lines is from Nux in this regard on this topic, and it's when Nux is like lamenting like that he's not going to make it to Valhalla, and
Right.
he says, I should be mixing with the Immortan on the Fury Road. And
That's right.
Mediocre.
it's just a well, mediocre.
That is
Yeah.
the best line in the movie.
I think
Yeah.
that may be my favorite.
It's just a perfect critique of like consumerist capitalism,
Right.
and
Right.
yeah, and how these things have like ascended into the zeitgeist.
Yeah.
Yeah.
I love the idea of people don't know that there was a thing called McDonald's, but they still say
Yeah.
McFeasting, and they don't mean
Yes.
it as a joke. That's just the vernacular. Yeah.
Mhm.
And of course,
Because I was like, there's not a McDonald's in sight.
right?
Not even, no relic.
It's not the
And they
weirdest
still
McDonald's
know.
commercial ever.
For
Yeah.
sure.
The language is so specific and like could almost be stupid, but it's so perfect. Like it's not.
Yeah.
It
think it
sounds
has
very realistic to the world. Sorry.
Yeah, I think it, no, sorry to cut you off, Meg. I think it has a appropriate amount of self-seriousness. No one's weakening at the audience when they say this. They are treating this like Shakespeare or something. They're treating this like
Yeah.
it is. It's not
Oh,
quite
yeah.
the lighthouse like we talked about, Megan, but there is an elevated language and an alternative language thing that everyone treats at face value. You know, they treat this like
Yes.
we are truly communicating.
Right.
Oh, I think there's a question, and I don't remember which of the characters asked it, but it's one of the wives. As you mentioned, Nux at one point, Nux initially is trying to save the day and get glory from Mornjo by returning the wives. And his first attempt is foiled with him being kicked out of the war rig. It's called the massive oil tanker. And one of the wives says after kicking him out, "Who destroyed the world?" And I might be missing that line up, but I think that line really sums up the whole movie of asking, like, who are the type of people who have, and it's already past tense, and I think it's still past tense, have destroyed the world. And I think this is maybe what
Yes.
Miller really wants you to think about, because it's not exclusively Immortan Joe, it is also Nux.
Mhm.
And it's also arguably at the beginning of the movie, Tom Hardy as this apathetic person who is just trying to escape on his own and is not initially willing to help these
Right.
women. There's
Mhm.
certainly a scale here. Obviously, an Immortan Joe type is much more monstrous and is doing
Yes.
incalculably more damage than everyone else.
Yeah.
But like, who's following that?
Yeah, I'm really glad you brought that up, because there's so much going on in just that, right? The sense of like apocalyptic feudalism, and like
Right.
each of the characters has a very clear like parallel with modern society. You have like Nux, and you have the war boys, and you have the people who are like sympathetic in their own way, but they are antagonists
Right.
in the film, right? They are people who are brought up to serve and die for the purposes of one man who holds all the power. And you have those who are victims of it, attempting to escape it. And then you have Max, who the general audience is going to identify with, who is, like you said, just trying to escape it. He's not trying to make anything better. He is not trying to perpetuate this system. It is actively harming him, but he's only looking out for himself, because what can he do? He is one man. And there's it's so dense, right? It's so dense because you have people now who look up to and idolize men like
Elon Musk or something.
yeah, like Elon Musk
Elon's a
and
good
Jeff
example.
Bezos
Yeah.
and literally robber barons, right?
Right,
Those
right.
two in particular. We can
Let's
we
throw
can
Bill
throw
Gates in
we
there,
can
too.
throw Trump in there too.
Yeah.
Like right, like these
Mhm.
people who our society and our culture have defined as successful and indoctrinated people with. If you want to be successful, you need to be like them. If
Right.
you want to ascend to Valhalla in our world, you need to be Immortan Joe. And we see that in the film and we're like, oh, that's bad. But in life, some people don't quite get that. It's like you are
Right.
sacrificing literally your morality, literally your like sense of ethics to succeed in a world that tells you that is the only thing that success is. As long as you are not those who are literally on the ground of the Citadel, on the desert floor, starving and dying of thirst, you're winning.
So Riley, going off what you were talking about with the Immortan Joe real life parallels, you know, our Jeff Bezos, etc. I think I'm particularly mad at Elon Musk now, so I'm going to say him.
Yeah,
I think,
fair.
and going back to that question asked of who destroyed the world, it is obviously much more Elon Musk than it is a Tesla employee, because I fully understand we live
Yeah.
in a capitalist society. We have to do things, we have to
Right.
work, we have to survive. This goes back to the biopower and the necro power. But as this movie illustrates too, like Nux is not a hero for following that. And I think that's what I think this movie highlights. And it's not just because he works for him, it's he does truly believe the ideology of that. And we're going to meet those people a lot more. We're going to meet Nux a lot more than we're going to meet in Morton Joe in our day-to-day life. And I think this movie challenges us to challenge those people in our life. And I will admit, until very recently, I was reluctant to even talk about politics with someone who didn't agree with me, because it was just so overwhelmingly depressing. And I did not think I was going to change minds. And I'll get too much into family backstory. Like I did not change minds. And I think this movie challenged us to be a little bit more bold with that. And maybe that's just something that's been in my mind more lately, as I've had surprisingly positive conversations with people of differing opinions. But yeah, you're not going to be able to meet in Morton Joe in person and take him down unless you are particularly ambitious. But you're going to meet the foot soldiers.
I absolutely agree. I've had like similar things, and I've found that if people aren't like instantly willing to talk about, hey, the people on the bottom of the Citadel deserve what we have,
Right.
It's easy to say, like, hey, the people eater in charge of Gastown sure has it real good.
Right. Right.
Hey, man, why's Joe got all the women, and like
Yeah.
why is the bullet farmer the one who gets the cool guns,
Right.
to point out that kind of thing, because our society like encourages that, like almost like Max, that like self-centered work yourself towards Valhalla rather than work everyone up towards Valhalla. I've found it easier to at least get people to start thinking about that when you talk about what someone else has over you rather than what you have over others, because no one wants to see themselves as like that villain, right? No one wants to see themselves on the side of the bad people, or feel like they were tricked into being on the side of the bad people, because they don't want to feel stupid, right? And I am a perfect example of one of those people. I grew up in the wasteland, right? I grew up in frickin' Gastown. Like I was part of that, and like had that conservative ideology all around me. And like I never really liked the rich, but like that pull yourself up by the bootstraps ideology was like bred into me, kind of thing. And it took me a long time to break out of that. And it doesn't work for everyone, but I was shamed in my ignorance to the point where I had to like actually shut up and listen to people, because I found I couldn't hold a conversation with people who knew more than me. And I had to start listening. And it's taken a long time to really break out of that, but like I slid straight past centrist and went to full freaking like anarcho-communist almost.
Well, I just love, always. I just love that the film also like question the people that are, or we're not like looking down on the followers of this guy. I think it portrays like cultism so well, because we're just we obviously feel so terrible for these people, but and it's not like they're stupid. They're not, and they're not like stupid for also following him. Like you can see the system to everything, and like once you see that, I think that's when it's like, oh, okay, like it's a thing you can't unsee, I guess.
What I want to point out also is like the wives are the people who are like at the front, the victims, right? Like there are the people on the ground and there are the wives, and those are the clear and obvious victims of this system. And they, as far as I can tell, those two groups are the only groups in the film who have people of color as part of them. Like all of the war boys are literally painted white. They are all painted or dusted white. Joe is white. and just that further commentary that I honestly missed the first time, and now looking back on it, it feels so painfully obvious.
Right.
Like Miller's putting in like race relations and how this power dynamic serves those who are white.
And going off what you were both just saying, I think like you were saying, Megan, about like the cultists are brainwashed but not stupid, because there certainly is a difference there. And I think that makes the violence all the more intense and horrifying, is because like you know these people can't be reasoned with, but are also not evil. You know, like the people who are, I don't know the body count in this movie, but it's rather high, you know.
Yeah.
But they it is so real world stakes. Like, we have to kill these people. Obviously, there's not advocating murder. I don't get too much satisfaction by like a war movie of Nazis being killed or whatever, or anything like that. But like, you don't really have that traditional they shot the bad guys thing. It's often some surprising and some epic kill cams, for lack of a better term. But you do really see what's going on with these people and how they are being used. And it makes the chase all the more frightening. Like, I think this movie was oddly, I'm just realizing this now, kind of a gateway for me to get into horror movies too, because the imagery is so strong in this.
Really?
Yeah.
I also want to quickly say, like, I think that something that really worked for me weirdly with the movie is that it's actually not preachy about any of these things that we talk about too. Like, even in its like environmental message is kind of like, they're just, I think they almost literally can't fit anything in there of like them being like, well, the humans were like this and this is how this and this happened. Like, it's, they don't have enough time for that because of like how action packed it is. I would argue, but I think that I just like that it's so like just you're in it like immediately, obviously, and literally the chase happens extremely quickly, like not even 10 minutes, I don't think, in the movie. So, and we're like in it, and there's just not enough literal time to be on a soapbox about this is what happens and you should be like this and this, and like they don't have to do that. The imagery and like story is so painfully obvious, like it's just there, and that's a testament to like good storytelling and a perfect like show not tell detail, which I love and is a exclusive to cinema and like film art in general. And I think they just like do it so well here and can still tell such an amazing story like through it. It's incredible.
Totally agree with you, Megan. Absolutely.
Yeah, there's so much said, like even with the lack of dialogue. And I want to move into the lack of dialogue a little bit. So we've got you've got Joe, you've got the bullet farmer, and you have the war boys who are constantly going on these long monologues trying to proclaim their name, and they are obsessed with their name and establishing like who they are in this universe, juxtaposed to the women, and you sometimes don't even learn their names because their names are unimportant. It is what is happening to them and where they are in the world, and what is happening in the world that is important to them.
I want to just interrupt real quick, Riley, to say like I agree with what you're saying, and it's not that they are blended. I think there's certainly a strong personality comes from all of the women.
100%.
And I know you weren't saying that. I just make sure that's clear to anyone who hasn't seen that movie. Like, these are all individual characters with a strong and developed personality. At least that was my impression.
Yeah, and thank you for clarifying that. That was not what I was trying to imply. Each of them is like incredibly talented in what they have. One of them literally inherits the seeds that will like potentially regrow life on Earth. One of them is literally named Capable, because she kind of does everything on the war rig that she needs to. She is kind of the one that gets Nux over.
It's kind of like this engineer mind that she has.
Well, an engineer and a therapist. Like she convinces Nux to like find purpose in himself.
A real Chief O'Brien.
Yeah, there you go. But anyway, like they don't make their lives about them, right? Like they are obviously protecting themselves, trying to escape Joe, but they're not as self-obsessed as like the verbose bullet farmer who is the conductor of the choir of death, you know. He goes on this tirade after he gets his eyes shot out. Yeah, it's great. And Max is the same way. Max doesn't even admit his name until like the very end. He's
Right.
like,
maybe
I have
less
nobody.
than 10 minutes in the movie, right?
Yeah.
Yeah.
Yep.
Mhm.
No,
It's so beautiful. Sorry, I keep talking
That's
over
all right.
you, but
That's why you're
it's so
here.
beautiful, like how Max is not really a player in this film.
Mm.
Max is a guest into an already established and happening sequence of events and storyline. He does have like an active role in like kind of directing where this momentum is going, but he is a foreign agent like element in this film and leaves much in the same way. Like once Furiosa and the I can't remember the name of the women, but the mothers.
That's right. Yeah, the mothers.
Yeah,
Does that
come
ring a bell,
back.
Megan?
Yeah, the
Oh.
mothers who
Older
they
women.
meet up with out in the wasteland.
But they had like a tribe name like Volvani, maybe, or I'm
Yeah,
sorry.
no, you're
Okay.
right.
That's right.
Because they have like a hand gesture that they do as
Yeah.
well.
Yeah.
Vuvolini.
Volvolini, yes.
And
Pasta, sorry.
yeah, no imagery there. But once they return to the Citadel and reclaim it and like are going to, as it suggests, like make things equal, Max leaves because he's not
Right.
part of this.
Mhm.
And who
He's
he
very
is
much like taken for a ride the whole time.
yeah,
which
for sure.
we all are writers, Riley especially, and I think we all know one among the first tips you get for bad stories is to have a passive lead character, to have someone who is not making things happen. And Mad Max is arguably a passive lead character in this movie, but it's
Very
still
much so.
great. And it's not a mistake. It's not like George Miller didn't know what he was saying. I know I've talked with the two of you about this before, but like this, I became aware that there was a thing called men's rights activism because of articles looking up, just trying to read more about this movie, reading up the insane complaints about this movie, about Mad Max being second place to a woman. How dare them? And also the bizarre idea that water shouldn't be free, and that's just communist Soviet Russia to have free water. Like, what did you see the movie? Because everyone needs water there, and all of us being from California, I think we're particularly on our mind. Riley, I know you have a lot to say about the Resnicks. I think, or we can probably go into that now.
And
if I may step back real quick on the note of the dialogue. And one last thing, let's dive into the more fun political stuff. There's no screenplay for this movie. There was 3,500 plus storyboards, and which is among the reason there's very limited dialogue. And I just want to note the actors. Everyone is great in this, but Charlize Theron and Max, played by Tom Hardy, are so limited in their speech that it really makes the flourishes of these self-Beowulf-like proclamations that these villains have all the more fun. That there's such empty words too, and they're said by great actors, and then the people who are our heroes who are actually doing things are humbled by default by not really saying much to their own skill set. But I think that is still unparalleled to have a movie this immense without a screenplay. Okay, let's talk about water, Riley.
So let's get into water. As we've said, we are from California. And for those of you not from California, if you don't know, water is almost the thing in our state. I know that I'm going back into the valley when I start seeing political signs talking about water. And Mad Max so the Citadel has all the water, right? And they grow all the crops. And there is a scene where Joe is preparing to open the floodgates and give the people on the ground some water because they are caked with dust and obviously starving. And in his speech, he says, "Do not grow addicted to the water. You will resent its absence." And that is what's happening in California. And I'm going to really go in on a couple people who I believe are at the heart of California's water crisis, regardless of like the drought that the Southwest is experiencing. The severity of it is due to the Resnicks, who are a couple of venture capitalists, honestly, who started buying up farmland in California in the 80s and incrementally like worked their way up to controlling like a third of California's water. Stuart Resnick, like I said, started buying up farmland in the southern Central Valley, where is the ag center of like the United States and a huge part of the world, honestly. For a long time, there were what's called like frontier water rules. It was called senior rights, where the first people in California, if you got access to a source of water, like if you were there first, that's yours. You now have that forever, pretty much. You claimed it, you got it, kind of thing. And for the audience, if you want to hear more about this, a lot of what I'm going to be talking about is from another podcast called The Dollop with Dave Anthony and Gareth Reynolds. They're great. It's an American history podcast. Like, I'm going to promote it all the time. Sorry, guys. I don't mean to like promote another show on your show, but that's where I'm getting my information.
That's quite all right.
That's why
they're
you're
they're
Yes.
very well researched and hilarious.
And we are not.
They have a longer story on the Resnicks. They have a whole episode on it. But at one point, there is a system in California that is supposed to bring water from the north to the south into the Central Valley and into LA and Southern California. That wasn't finished. It was supposed to, at one point, bring in, I think, like 4 million gallons of water a year or something like that. But the system was never like finished. The pipelines and aqueducts and stuff were never quite completed. So it was only doing about half of that, right? Stuart Resnick sued the state of California over it, saying that like they promised to deliver more, but they weren't, but they couldn't because it wasn't done yet. They then went into like conversations with the state in private. And this happened, like I said, in the 80s or something like that, maybe early 90s. But what came from a conversation behind closed doors that no one knows who was in the meeting, no one knows who represented the state at the time. All that we know is that at the end of it, the Resnicks then gained ownership over 2 of 6 California water districts at the time. And one man owns a third of California's water, and water is it's a right. It's a right. Like, you need it to live. The United States is the only country in the world who voted against food being a human right, and this is a perfect example of that. They then introduced something called like paper water to like kind of give themselves some like defense of like, well, this water like technically exists, right? Think of it as like money. If we were back on the gold standard, the money represents gold. You don't have the gold, but now imagine someone is using up all the gold. They're just burning it or melting it. So you have technical gold that isn't backed by anything. You have paper water for water that they are actively using, and what they're using it for is they bought up another, like they almost doubled their acreage by the end of the 90s and had like hundreds of thousands of acres that they are growing pistachios on, and pistachios take a gallon of water per nut. It's extremely water costly, and the whole reason why pistachios were the crop that they chose was because the US was sanctioning Iran at the time, and Iran was known for their pistachios globally. And they took advantage of that and said, cool, we're going to start growing pistachios in California. And the wonderful company, Wonderful Pistachios, that's it. And through more like getting products in people's hands and pushing politicians and wonderful capitalism, they are bleeding California dry and have bled California dry for the sake of pistachios. I'm sure like everyone's heard about the Delta smelt and that whole conversation, right? The Delta smelt is a keystone species that lives in the Sacramento Delta that literally like is a cornerstone of the whole food chain. If the smelt goes, the salmon goes, the rest of the fish go, the whole ecosystem on the West Coast gets absolutely fucked. And they are opponents of like, oh, California is trying to save this tiny little fish instead of letting you grow food. They are Morton Joe in California. They have spread all this propaganda to their war boys who don't even know who they are, but they know their ideology and believe it as fact. In 2005, they got Fiji Water.
Shit.
Fiji Water, who is also denying water rights to native Fijians. And they just put it in everybody's hands. So not only in California, but also globally, they are actively denying water rights to people who need it. Those who worked their fields in Southern California, if you know of like halos, halos were the resnicks. They are like seedless mandarins that a lot of people on the West Coast like. After surveys of fields and like interviews with their workers, one of their workers said, if not all of us, most of us are undocumented, and they were paid below minimum wage and didn't have access to water. And they're employed by this megacorp, this ag corp that built itself off of water. They had to buy bottled water for like $50 to $100 a month. And when you're paid below minimum wage and you're undocumented immigrant, you're not going to be able to spend your money on anything else. This next partnered with a man named John Vidovich, who at first was one of their like business rivals, but kind of joined up with them. And he started buying up water in Kings and Tulare County and then selling it to whoever he wanted, i.e. the Resnicks for cheap. And for all the like family farmers in the valley, he's well, you got paper water. As we know, paper water was useless because Resnicks are using up all the water that we got. The pumping of aquifers has lowered the level of the land in California by 30 feet since the 70s. It's an average of like a foot a year because our land is sinking because all these aquifers are emptying out. And the Resnicks, along with other companies, were found to use fracking water, which is a oil polluted byproduct of fracking, to water a lot of their fields. So not only are they wasting the precious water that we have, but they're feeding you polluted products. I care a lot about this because I'm from ag land, and like I said, every political sign I saw growing up was like, Democrats are like denying us water, like is growing food wasting water? And for a while I believed that kind of thing, like you should be able to grow what you want. But when it's a crop that we chose for the purposes of sanctions and the purposes of like political things, like the pistachio is not native to California, is not meant to be grown in California. It's
I
bad.
believe it's similar with almonds, right, Riley? They also take quite a lot of
Well,
water.
yeah, I believe so. There's a lot of crop choices that are not good, and a lot of like agriculture is central to the identity of the valley. It was not originally intended to be an ag center. Like the Central Valley used to be a inland sea before colonization. But because of damming and because of like Western construction, it's now like dry and barren. It used to flood and then dry out and then flood and dry out. But we've ruined that ecosystem, and we'll go into the drought now because I'm sure people have started to hear this on the news, but Lake Mead is at the lowest the water level has ever been. Lake Mead is a like man-made lake from Hoover Dam, and it supplies millions of people with water and millions of people with power. And if it sinks by another 100 feet, it will not be able to generate power. And upwards of like 10 million people possibly go without power. And that includes California, Nevada, Arizona, even parts of like Mexico get water from the Lake Mead. And most importantly, or I should say most crucially, native communities, because they do not have their own access to water. Like we've deprived them of this and taken everything from them and made them dependent on a system that is actively failing, right? And I know for a fact that they will be the first cut off. They will be the first to lose power, the first to lose water, the first to lose everything if they have not already. So if you want to look for examples of like Morton Joe, I know we said like Elon Musk and Trump and Jeff Bezos, but the Resnicks are a name that not a lot of people know about, and they are going to kill millions of people.
Really, thank you so much for sharing that. And
No.
I think that that's a great point you just made of like, there's the names who were narcissists who really want to be in the spotlight, but there's a lot more people who we don't know who are killing us. And
yeah, absolutely. They've inspired more. Like Enron tried to do the same thing with like a British water company.
Right.
They had another one in California that kind of got like caught and distributed, but land developers would build housing complexes based off of paper water when they had no water available to them.
Yeah.
Like Porterville, California, which is like maybe like 20 minutes from my hometown. It ran out of well water in like the peak of the 2010s drought and had to start like trucking in their water and using like bottled water to shower because all of their well water was bought up without them knowing. And I know that a lot of people, they like the idea and they're sentimental about like the family farm, and there are a lot of families out there who have their own farm and stuff, but like Mega Ag Corp is going to kill us, and that's the largest ownership at the moment. Like I know Bill Gates owns the most farmland in I think the world, and it's we have a natural resource that we are actively running out of, and the stuff that we're using it on, and we're gonna start hitting really tough times, really, really hard times. And that's only, as important as this is and as big as this isn't even the most timely of topics. We're going to soon transition into another. For devastating news as of yesterday, the United States Supreme Court has overturned Roe v. Wade, which gave women the right to bodily autonomy and an abortion. And if you want to talk about another parallel with Mad Max, that's going to be like weaponizing sex and gender and the male ownership of the female body.
All of this is awesome in like the most sick way. Awesome in the sense that it's so huge. Like it really is.
Yeah, it's hard to.
It peppers everything. It touches everything, I guess, that we know and our systems. And but I mean, Riley, thank you for
thank you so much.
Explaining that so well and so profoundly. Like I think it just what a perfect film, first of all, to talk about with it. I mean, it's become like I said, like my top 5 to top 3. It might even be my favorite movie of all time. I mean, I can see it. And it's just like I said, like I feel like it just shows all of these happenings very well and not unrealistically now. Like basically, even at the time that it was 2015, people think that it's a fantasy almost. No, it's not. Like it's actually quite possible, and I think that like people are coming privy to that nowadays because of the reason that you're talking about, Riley. So
a bit my own ignorance of Australian history is, I think there's clear parallels we can draw as Californians, specifically as Americans specifically, but these were not unfounded fears, and they were not things that hadn't happened to some degree already. And I imagine there is something going on in Australia that Miller was keenly aware of. There's similar things happening. There's obviously a lot of, just like any nation that was originally colonized by England, a horrible treatment of the natives in Australia. So, and how that affects the land. I just want to say this as well, we're on the subject. It is so upsetting to me that people get really caught up with QAnon conspiracies. Because why do you need there to be a Jewish space laser when there's a much more real, terrifying, but similarly convoluted thing happening? There is, Bill Gates, who's still doing all his philanthropy, is killing us, and like that's the thing you can prove. That's a real thing that's happening. You don't need to dig too deep in to find a Pizzagate crazy.
Yeah.
Like,
if you
you're
want,
you're right to distrust the rich and the elites,
right,
but look at the things
just
they're
for
actually
the wrong
doing.
reasons.
Yeah,
Yeah,
Right.
like if you want to look at the people in the terms of like using words from the film, like if you want to look at who killed the world,
right.
you can look at capitalists.
Absolutely.
And by that I mean like a lot of people like on the ground level like us may identify as capitalists, the war boys who like have been indoctrinated with this ideology.
Right.
You're not a capitalist. The
Yeah.
audience, dear war boy audience, you
You're a
are not a
capitalist. You're not listening to this
capitalist.
podcast.
Right.
Yeah,
Well,
that's
no,
true.
like even if you do, like say like some 20-something-year-old who's like working at the grocery store or something who really likes Elon Musk, right? Let's
Right.
just say you bought into like the memes and stuff
Right.
and his attempt at comedy. Like that's fine. The world has told you to believe him, right? But I'm telling you now, you are not a capitalist. You do not own capital, my friend. Like
And you do not
you
benefit from capitalism.
Right.
you are not reaping any of the benefits that these monsters are using to destroy you and me and
Yeah.
those around us and the land we live on. Like you want to look at who killed the
Mhm.
world? Let's look at the climate apocalypse that is
Right.
steadily approaching, right? You want to look at who killed the world? Let's look at the military industrial complex who is
Yeah.
destroying just entire ecospaces. Like let's look at what Agent Orange has left in
Yeah.
Vietnam and like Korea. When we want to talk about who killed the world, it's going to be the rich, it's going to be the Joes, it's going to be the Resnicks, it's going to be the bullet
Mhm.
farmers, it's going to be freaking Boeing,
Yeah.
Yeah.
it's going to be all these arms manufacturers and stuff like that. And what's difficult is like for people like us, like we can see that and we can say that safely. And yeah, there's no I struggle with this a lot. There's no ethical consumption under capitalism.
Right.
And we're all those of us who see the system as it is,
Mhm.
we're max a lot of the time.
Yeah.
We are max 90% of the time. We're just trying to get through. We're just trying to pass through the wasteland and find
Yeah.
what little bit we can. We need to find the Furiosas in life and really fall in under them. Like we need to find the mothers. We need to listen to native populations. Like
Right.
it's easy
Yeah.
to doom scroll through the day. I do that far too much. But especially after yesterday, and I really want to get into this now. That was like the last bastion, right? Like as soon as Roe v. Wade fell, everything else is gonna fall, right?
Mhm.
It's going to happen. It's already like predetermined. Like a lot of states had those trigger laws where as soon as Roe v. Wade fell, a lot of human rights got taken away across the board. And
There's
it's
already been 300 bills targeting transsexuals that have been trying
yeah,
to take away their rights that are in
right,
process or have gone.
right. And Clarence Thomas himself said it. Like
Yeah.
they're going to start analyzing bills that are protect you and your right to like your own sexual activity in your own home. They're going to start looking at things that are like the segregation of schools and
Right.
even like interracial marriage. Like we
Yeah.
thought Roe v. Wade was safe. It wasn't,
That's
obviously.
true.
At some point, like shit's gonna get bad, and we need to find those people who are willing to try and make things better and not just, pass through the wasteland.
Right.
Even if it gets there, like you need to break out of that necropower world
Mhm.
and make your life like your life. Get some meaning to it. Find something to like help those around you. Start finding charities and start finding like organizations that need help, need volunteers. If you don't have money, like that's fine. If you have time, cool. Like whatever you
Yeah.
can give, we need to be able to start relying on our local communities
Yeah.
before like the national sense overwhelms us.
Mhm.
Great. Folks, we've given you a lot to think about. We appreciate you listening. I know this one is more politically charged than usual. I don't see that changing. It's a more politically charged world than usual. As we've quoted before, as Boots Riley said, all art is political, you just don't notice. if it reinforces the status quo. And that's one of the reasons we love this movie. It certainly does not reinforce the status quo. It calls into attention what's wrong with it. I just want to say, I think we're all three, especially us and our age, are very tired of being told to just vote. That is not the solution here. We voted for the people who are supposed to do the thing who've not done the thing. So
Yeah.
I know this is not something that's within everybody's means, but if you can donate, don't donate to the Democratic Party, because they're just gonna, like they have been using of, oh, you need to vote for us, so we make sure we codify Roe v. Wade. That had a lot of chances to do that. A lot of chance to do a lot of things.
If you need a concrete example, like Clarence Thomas, who is the like leader of the majority opinion on all that, Joe Biden helped put him into his position.
Yes.
To not to go on the political thing again,
Sure,
but
that's
like
all right.
Joe Biden let Republicans rip Anita Hill to shreds and humiliate her in her hearing, who was trying to stop Clarence Thomas, her sexual assaulter, from getting on the Supreme Court.
Brett Kavanaugh is nothing new.
Yeah. This has happened a long time, and by the President of the United States, no less.
Yes, absolutely. And so I just want to say, folks, if you can donate to a true cause, do your due diligence. Like I said, I frankly don't think we can endorse donating to a political party at this point. If there's a local abortion fund or some of that sort, if there's a local union, if there's a local activism group, get involved.
Mutual aid is a great thing. There's a lot of organizations like all over the place. There's many in the Bay where I'm at. I'm sure there's quite a few in Wisconsin where Seth's at.
Very true. We are a truly purple state with big glorious circles of blue around Madison, Milwaukee, where I am. But I was going to say, if you're able to take part of any general strikes, that is frankly among the most important and effective things we've ever been able to accomplish, is because of strikes. I know not everyone is able to do that. I know it's still a very economically precocious period for a lot of us. I recently was laid off myself. It's hard out there, folks. I'm not telling you you're a bad person for not striking, but if you can, please do it. Okay. Thank you for still being with us. We're going to move into our recommendations. We'll never be able to stop talking about how great Mad Max Fury Road is, but please watch it.
The day I die.
Any last comments from each of us? Or should we just move on?
I can kind of talk about...
I think they're tired of hearing me.
Not at all.
Not at all, Riley. No, we really appreciate it.
Yes.
I can talk about... Mine will actually lead into my recommendation. Maybe
okay, perfect. You go ahead and start with there then, Megan.
Sure. So, I mean, I like I said, and I will continue to say, Mad Max floored me in many ways, politically, story-wise, everything, but also visually. Like, I've never seen a movie edited this way in maybe just a long time, and or ever. It was amazing to me. It was full on. It was like stunning. It was a lot, and like a lot of like maximalism. And this is quite a turn, but we're movies coming out that I'm interested in visually specifically, and that's going to be the Elvis movie by Baz Luhrmann, because Great Gatsby was his previous film, and that movie looked disgusting in some ways to me, and it was like I couldn't. It's very fascinating to me, because I think I get like his style, and it's a very stylistic choice, but Gatsby was god awful and like full of CGI like madness that just looked insane to me. And but so I have hope for Elvis, and this is why, is because I think that it just didn't serve the Gatsby, like that style, Baz's style just didn't serve something set in the 1920s that is about like glamour, I guess. But from the trailer that I've seen of like Elvis, I think that it'll actually, here's my crossing fingers hoping that it'll serve really well for performance scenes and like the craze that was Elvis. And again, this is a big turn, because Elvis is like a figure in of himself, and I'm hoping that they're going to talk about everything that he has to contribute to American society in a negative sense, folks. But yeah, so I'm
not without sin.
I'm hoping we'll see, but visually, I think I'm very, very interested, because Mad Max was so like perfectly maximalism. I'm going to see how this monstrosity of a movie is gonna like hopefully redeem itself, especially as like a stylistic choice for an a director that is very specific, akin to George Miller. So this is a hopeful
Yeah.
recommendation, basically, that I haven't seen it yet. It hasn't come out yet, but as of the time of this recording, but I'm going to watch it with hopeful eyes and see how it compares.
This is the essence of Film Optimist, negative. Recommend a movie you hope you will like when it comes out.
Yeah, exactly.
But I
Of
love it. That's
course.
fantastic.
Mhm.
Yeah, Baz Luhrmann is also Australian.
He
Are
is.
you? Do you have out of the more successful Baz Luhrmann movies, Megan? Do you have a favorite?
You know, I haven't even seen like Moulin Rouge,
Really?
unfortunately.
Okay, you would like it.
Yeah,
Moulin
and I
Rouge
think I
is
would like it.
great.
It is actually. I
Yeah.
really like his Romeo plus Juliet as well.
Okay. Mhm.
I'm
I
not
know.
sacred about Shakespeare, so I don't like. Why wouldn't it be about LA Street Kings? That's great.
Sure. I think I just need to see something like redeem Gatsby for me. It
That's fair.
wasn't. It wasn't like terrible. It was just so bizarre looking. Like
Yeah.
I don't know. It just looked crazy.
Well,
I've had plenty of movies disappoint me like that. Like
Yeah,
it's just
know.
how it is. You've got one that'll stick with you, and you're like, I need to like something else to spite this movie.
Yes. Or just to correct it. Like I
this will
can't.
be
Right, yeah.
this will be like our year-end special of movies that really disappointed us, our Bizarro After Hours thing.
Oh,
I know,
can't
because that's
wait to
not what
hear
we're
that
about.
one.
You're right,
Not what we're
but I
about.
fully understand what you're saying, Megan. I think I've definitely had, especially with creators I thought I would like. Well, this kind of came up when we had Trin on talking about Drive. I really thought I would like Drive, and I really thought I'd like his other movies, and I don't. But hopefully you have a redemption round with the
Thanks.
Elvis Baz Luhrmann movie.
I'm excited.
Let me know.
Sure.
All right, Riley, you're up.
Yeah, so another political film, but on something equally important concerning like nothing is safe, nothing is sacred. I think that District 9 is a film that everyone should see. District 9 is a sci-fi movie, but it deals with like immigration and race relations, and tackles the topic of like racism extremely well. I believe it is set in South Africa, which is a country with its own dense history on the topic. Extremely well done, extremely well shot. A hard thinker. Like it's not going to be a casual watch, but it is a very good experience. It is a very good film, and I think everyone should see it.
Great choice, Riley.
Nice.
Okay, mine will also be kind of in the political vein of a movie that is, I think, maybe more subtle. This is Inherent Vice, Paul Thomas Anderson's movie, and I say subtle because it's certainly got a reputation, unfortunately, of being a stoner movie. So a lot of people who like, I like Superbad, maybe I like this or whatever. It's not that type of movie. This is Joaquin Phoenix is a stoner detective who is high for most of the movie, but this is a movie that addresses a lot of America's dark past as well. You know, people displacing natives and minority populations to put housing complexes. So America's involvement with, like you're asking, with the resonance of who owns land and how they get it is a huge part of this movie. Resources in general, and the plot heavily leads into police corruption and the FBI COINTELPRO program and the Red Scare, Blacklist, just like who does America let be rich and why, and who else benefits from that. So it is a complicated noir narrative that I really enjoy, and I can understand people can be confused by. If you like The Big Lebowski or Long Goodbye or something like that, this is up your alley. But this is not just a detective story. This movie has a lot to say about America, and not to make it too regional, but about California specifically. So
awesome.
Nice. Ties in perfect with Mad
Max. Well, we should also just end on some other exciting news, because I mentioned this to you guys, I think, but the reason we didn't until recently hear more news about Mad Max, even though it was a hit, was George Miller was in an ongoing feud with Warner Brothers. And I guess that has been resolved because Mad Max Furiosa has been announced. So we are finally getting a follow-up. And this is going to be a prequel. I think it's her name, Anya Taylor-Joy, I believe, is going to be playing Furiosa.
Oh, yes.
And you know, oddly, of all people to announce it was Chris Hemsworth, so he's going to be in this movie. whether
Interesting.
I don't think he's playing Max. I don't even know if Max is in this movie, but
Hmm.
Tom Hardy signed a contract for 3 pictures, and
Oh.
I think Charlize Theron might have as well. So yeah, my
What?
understanding of
What?
this, my
What?
understanding, and I mean he signed it like back in like 2014 or something. So my understanding
Yeah.
is Warner Brothers said that George Miller didn't bring the movie in under budget like he was supposed to, where there's
Hmm.
complications about that, and
Sure.
whatever bullshit it is. Hopefully it's complete resolve, because there's a lot more that George Miller still has to say within this universe.
Absolutely.
Yes.
And
Oh, especially now.
yes, especially now. So I'm
Right.
very excited to see what that is. I really like Tom Hardy in this role. I think he's among the best actors who can be so effective without even having their face visibly seen, like we saw
Yeah.
with Dunkirk and Bane and this.
I have to confess, like,
Yeah.
Tom Hardy is definitely my like sexual like awakening. Like, do I like just women?
Yes.
And then I see Tom Hardy, and I'm
Tom
like,
Hardy will
No.
do it,
maybe
right?
not. Like, God damn. So for him and Charlize Theron in the same film,
Oh
like
yeah, it's fantastic.
teenage me, it was like,
Yeah.
oh, okay, sure.
Yeah.
You know,
Like I
this
say,
brings
he
up a-
doesn't do it for me, and he does it for me now.
Yeah.
Yeah.
The leather jacket and all sorts of
Yeah.
things. Yeah.
Yep.
I will say quickly a plug for a Mad Max, just a little bit on it. It's just that like I think also in what we were talking about today, it's easy to get numb. I know that I've
Right.
felt that, been struggling with that recently, especially when autonomy is taken. But the movie triumphs like doing something as much as you can and persevering. So
Yeah.
if you need that right now, watch the movie. Like I
Right.
think you'll feel it. I certainly did. That may be a reason why it was so such a good watch for me, is that
Yeah.
it just you feel that really hard actually.
For sure.
So a triumph of the movie, like
regardless of when like our episode airs, like
Yeah.
listeners, like, be a nux, like
Yeah.
like change your perspective if you're like starting to see things that are making you question. And especially like whenever you're listening to this, like assuming things are going to stay the way they are for a while, like find the women in your life, find like the people with uteruses in your life, and make sure that they are okay, because it is not just pregnancy that they're going to have to deal with here in the near future. It's going to be a hell of a lot more. So
yeah.
Absolutely. All right, folks. Well, thank you for listening. Riley, fantastic to have you back.
Thank you guys. I loved it as always.
Love going through the wasteland with you.
For sure.
To Valhalla.
You can ride in my war rig anytime.
Oh yeah,
Wasn't expecting that.
Now I drive the war rig.
I'm gonna fill my Ford Focus with gasoline now and
Yeah, there you go.
Go drive around.
Perfect. I'm glad we all had the right takeaway from this movie.
Yeah.
All right,
100%.
folks. That'll do it for this episode.
Take care.
Take it easy, y'all.
You made it to the end. Congratulations. Thank you so much for listening. This audio was a little clippy. Sorry about that. Thank you for sticking with it. It may be the Resnicks. Who knows? I have a quick anecdote for you people who have stayed to the end to join me. This is actually, if you can believe it, recording number 2 that we have done of Mad Max Fury Road. We're really, really happy with the way it turned out, considering our times. But basically, your homegirl Megan had made a big mistake and lost our entire footage when we first recorded it. So I really appreciate the grace of these guys that I get to record with, Riley and Seth. And I'm just glad how the episode turned out, and I hope you enjoyed it as well. Here's hoping that literally never happens again. Take care, folks.